Oh, yeah. This is probably the greatest game of all time, and I know I don't really talk about games a whole lot on this podcast, but this game's something special, and it's just been recently announced that they're going to be re-releasing it on Xbox, and everybody should buy it. And yeah, let's just talk about how great this game is. GoldenEye 64. So just a quick little promo for my buddies over at Greenlight Studios. They made a short little film about the Shag Harbor UFO incident. It's pretty neat. They're pretty talented. So if you ever want a couple greaseballs with massive guts to film your wedding, hit up Greenlight Studios. They'll definitely film it for you. They might even fly a little drone overhead. They might even, I don't know, they'll get some good pictures done, and hopefully they won't leave too many Burger King wrappers in your kitchen. So yeah, Greenlight Studios, and you can also check them out on Harbor Sound Entertainment as well. Just look it up on YouTube. And there's probably a few more. There's a couple Greenlight Studios on YouTube, so nice job picking that name there, Sean. But yeah, just look for the one with the massive guts. That's the one you want. So, like I said, Microsoft has recently announced that they're going to be re-releasing GoldenEye 64 with kind of a high-definition repackage, so it'll look good on a modern TV. Because if you ever hook up a Nintendo 64 onto a modern TV, it looks like complete trash because your TV's basically a modern TV is widescreen, and a Nintendo 64 is meant for an old tube TV. So it looks like complete garbage. Don't even bother doing it if you have a big TV. So yeah. Anyways, yeah. So please, Bill Gates, hurry up and release it. I know. I suppose some people are saying, "Oh, he's too busy working on the vaccine to depopulate the human population." Oh, well, Infowars. But yeah, maybe take a break from trying to depopulate the earth. Well, no, don't take too much of a break, because man, I'm a little sick and tired of seeing ugly babies all the time. But yeah, hurry up with releasing GoldenEye there, Mr. Bill Gates. Anyways, to kind of take you back to where gaming was kind of back then, if you don't remember, it was like 1995. 1995, the movie GoldenEye came out, and it was actually really great. It's probably in my top 5 Bond movies. The same guy that made GoldenEye also made Casino Royale, which is also another fantastic one. But the Nintendo 64 came out in like 1995, 1996. The movie was 95, but the game didn't actually come out till 1997. So they took a couple years after the movie came out to release the game. It actually released the same time as the Tomorrow Never Dies, the movie sequel. And back then, we didn't, it's not like today where first-person shooters are like a dime a dozen, and there's literally hundreds of them. You basically had a couple options. You had a PC where you had like games like Doom, Wolfenstein, or Quake. Quake was actually a really good online game. I'm probably didn't even come out in 1995. It may have been 1998, but either way, if you wanted to play a good multiplayer first-person shooter, you had to have a computer, because there was really no other option. There might have been, there was a game called Spectre on the Super Nintendo, which is like a tank game, and it had like polygon shapes and all that. But for the Nintendo 64, you had basically 2 other first-person shooters. You had Doom 64, which is actually a really good game, but it's not a good game on a Nintendo 64. By the re-released version of it that they have on modern consoles, it's really good and it plays very well. or there was Turok 64. Now, I actually really like Turok, but there's no multiplayer. And when GoldenEye first came out, it was the first time where I actually ever remember obviously I invited people over to play games on the Super Nintendo, but it was 4 people on the same TV playing one game. That was actually, it was actually very, very exciting back in the day. Now, when I first heard about GoldenEye 64, my neighbor brought his 64 over, and he brought GoldenEye, and we popped that sucker in. We also played another game called Star Wars Shadows of the Empire, which was also another great game. But when we popped in GoldenEye 64 for the first time, I was like, alright, Nintendo games are cool now. So, yeah, first time I ever really thought that, because I didn't play games a whole lot. I played Mario and Zelda, but GoldenEye was the first time I was ever actually excited to get off of, come home and play a game after school. Because I never really felt like that before, and this was the first time I was actually anxious to get off of school to go home and play GoldenEye. Now, another thing, put it in perspective, when the Nintendo 64 came out, I have 2 older brothers. They're 10 years older than me. So when the Nintendo 64 came out, they actually bought a Nintendo 64, kept it in their room and played it, and this was like in the fall of '96. And then when Christmas came around, they actually rewrapped what they already bought for themselves and gave it to me for Christmas. So it was my Nintendo 64, but it was really theirs, and they just wanted to get me excited for Christmas or something like that. I don't really know, but that was really, really quite an exciting morning. Now, I didn't actually get GoldenEye until a few years later. We would always just borrow it or rent it constantly. I remember one time my uncle, he would call me on, he would call the house on his, just before Christmas, and he would pretend to be Santa. He was kind of a hard old uncle. He used to actually be a bootlegger for the community, where he was too far out of town, so people would go to his house to pick up their liquor instead of going all the way to the liquor store in South End. So he was a bootlegger, but he was cool enough to pretend to be Santa. Maybe because the mall Santa, maybe he got fired from being a mall Santa because he was hungover or something. I don't know, but anyways, he called. I told him, I want Nintendo 64 and I want GoldenEye. So come Christmas morning, I got a Nintendo 64. I didn't get GoldenEye. I got Shadows of the Empire, and I got Killer Instinct, which was also made by the same people as GoldenEye, and it was actually really awesome. So we got the Nintendo 64. We would rent our games from a place in town. There was 2 places we rented our games from. We rented it from 10 to 10 Video, because that's where my brothers would go during like their lunch breaks or whatever. And we also had ATR Video, which is where that was the closest place to us that would carry video games. We would go there, and that's where we'd go to rent GoldenEye, or we would just borrow it from my brother's buddy who lived up the road. Now, one thing I have to say about my brothers for video games, I have one brother who's a crusty old fisherman, and he's like, he's got like some sort of autistic video game superpower where he's like, he's a greaseball who plays video games, and he's actually like really good at them. Like he was like esports level for Age of Mythology and Age of Empires and things like that. And for GoldenEye, he was really good. Like he beat it all on Secret Age and got all the cheats and unlocks and everything like that. But my other brother, who I wouldn't say he's a techie, but he's more technological. He's more skilled with technology than my other brother, and he couldn't. I didn't even think he knew how to hold the controller, which, well, to be fair, it looked like the Nintendo 64 controller just looks like three wieners dangling in a circle. Um, so whenever I would play with my brother, I would destroy him. My other brother, if I tried to play with him, if I did destroy him, he would kick me in the face. And that's just how he handled losing playing video games, and that was no different with GoldenEye. Now, another good thing about GoldenEye is one thing we used to do in elementary school is we would swap cartridges, because, well, we didn't really, like, we were kids. We didn't really understand that you go on the internet and look up cheat codes. And speaking of looking up cheat codes, my brother is also one of those people. He'll look up a guide on the internet and then he'll print it off, or he'll still buy strategy guides, like digital ones, and print them off because he's so terrible at video games. He pretty much needs it, or else he can't beat the game. But yeah, anyway, we would exchange cartridges, and like I would get my brother to unlock all the cheats for my friends. He'd be like, "Hey, I need the invincibility cheat on GoldenEye." So I'd borrow it, I'd bring it home, my brother would unlock the cheats, and we would send the cartridge back because GoldenEye 64 didn't use memory cards for that game for some reason. I don't know why, so you'd have to swap cartridges. And it was fun talking about GoldenEye at school because we would always be obsessed over the guns in the game. And in our school, we were a little obsessed with violence in my school. It was kind of strange. Like the day after 9/11, me and some of our classmates, we put on little, we took our sweaters and we tied it into little turbans on our head, and we ran around playing, like, instead of cops and robbers, it was cops and terrorists. So it wasn't really the smartest thing we could have done. So thankfully there was no one to take pictures of us doing these really terrible things. But that was how it was in elementary school. And in fact, to this day, me and my buddies, we try to have we don't really plan it as a GoldenEye party, but that's what we end up doing every year. Like every year we'll go to a camp, or we'll go to someone's house, and we'll have try to pull an all-nighter. But we're in our 30s, so we're basically calling it quits by 8:30 at night because nobody knows how to drink caffeine, I guess. So we'll play GoldenEye for hours at a time, and in true tradition, we'll play it on a tube, like a 15-inch tube TV. So we're squinting hard, trying to see everything. So that's what we will do every single year. We'll play GoldenEye. So once this actually gets re-released on the Xbox One, we'll actually be able to properly play it without having to worry about pulling N64 controllers out where the joysticks don't work, and we don't have to worry about accidentally pulling the cable out of the Nintendo 64 because one of us gets so mad at Alan because he's so terrible at games, and just normal things like that. Now, another thing you may have noticed in this podcast is that I'm actually adding all the GoldenEye soundtrack in the background of this podcast. Hopefully it doesn't get the podcast pulled down because of like copyright or whatever. But the soundtrack to this game was actually, I thought the game soundtrack was better than the movie soundtrack. Because like the intro, like if you ever go on YouTube and just type in GoldenEye pause button music, like you can jam out to that. You can be hibbity hopping and all over the place. And I don't know why I just said hibbity hopping, but oh well. Yeah, that was my little kind of tidbit about GoldenEye. I just kind of made this podcast just because I'm feeling nostalgic, and I'm actually done all my schoolwork for the year, so I actually have time to actually put out a podcast for once. If you do like me talking about video games, just let me know, because I don't really know if you guys even like video games or whatever. I know some of you do, but yeah, and I actually looked at some of my year-end Spotify stats, and I see that I'm like the number one podcast of choice for almost 20 of you. So for all of you people that gave me the old pity listen, thank you very much. And I know probably one of them's my mom, and one of them's probably my sister, and one of them's probably a good plumber, and one of them's probably an okay plumber. So thank you very much to both of you. So yeah, that's I don't really know what else to say about it. And I hope you guys all buy GoldenEye when it comes out, and that way you can add me on Xbox. If you want to add me on Xbox, my gamer tag is just literally my first name, just ZYDRIC. I'll accept any friend requests that get sent my way. That way we can kind of play it. And if you don't want to play GoldenEye, we can even play Perfect Dark, which is it's not the sequel to it, but it's kind of the sequel to it. They just made a brand new game using all the same features of GoldenEye, and they even pretty much remade the multiplayer for it, like all the GoldenEye maps, all the GoldenEye weapons. And they just changed it enough that they wouldn't have to, I guess, avoid the royalties from the movie. I guess I don't really know. So buy GoldenEye when it comes out. I think if you own Rare Replay, it'll be free. I'm not sure how that works, if you have to have a digital copy of it, but buy GoldenEye, buy Perfect Dark. Just buy it, or you can get it on Game Pass, I guess. I think it's coming out on the Switch as well. I don't know if that's going to be a high-res, high-definition version of the game, but if that's the only way you can play it, get it. But the real way of playing it is on a 15-inch TV with controllers that don't work, that give you blisters until you cry. That's the actual way to play GoldenEye. So yeah, I will talk to you next time. Thank you very much.